And one point I'd like to make here is when the body's under stress or strain, it creates an emergency response in the system through all these systems, and chemicals that are responsible for feeling good, like serotonin in the brain, get sucked up very quickly because you're not supposed to sit there when you're in an emergency feeling good. So we take serotonin uptake inhibitors to handle depression and anxiety kind of problems, which allows the brain to still have the good chemistry, but it's not doing anything about the strain that caused it, perhaps.
So it's dealing with the symptom, not the real
Right,
cause.
and that's sort of the difference between the medical model and the chiropractic or the vitalistic or the, what did we call it? The holistic kind of a model.
Holistic kind of model.
And each person is an individual, and each time I see people, they're a new slate. It's not like somebody will say, hey doc, you know, that last thing you did to my back felt really good, can you do it again? Well, if it's not necessary that day because we moved on, no.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned about the overall system that needs to be balanced, and why, oh, we have a caller online. Before I keep that question in mind. Go ahead, caller.
Hi. Recently, I went to my chiropractor's office for an adjustment, and as we walked to the front of the office, I noticed that he had some new displays of supplements and herbals, and he then proceeded to tell me that I needed to take supplements and herbals for optimum health, and then he suggested that I needed to take full spine x-rays, and I have to tell you, all of this made me feel very, very uncomfortable. I had the feeling that he went from doctor to salesman. My question to you is, what can a patient do when we're feeling uncomfortable, and how do we know we really need those recommendations?
Thank you very much for that call.
It's really a good question, and I think that the relationship between the doctor and the patient should be established to the point where you feel some trust. If you feel a discomfort, a bad feeling about something, then I'd suggest you need to sit with that and listen to it and talk to your chiropractor about that. There are chemical stresses on the body. There's structural stresses on the body, and there's emotional stresses on the body. If the system doesn't have the resources it needs to heal, then perhaps that would retard the healing process. Nutrition is a very complicated thing, and there are certainly a lot of problems, a lot of situations that come up. There's a new fad sort of all the time.
Yes.
And I think that each person needs to be looked at as an individual, and I would ask, how do you know that I need those things? And is it the right time for those things? And, you know, and maybe you shop around and get a different opinion like you would on a medical system where you don't go for the first surgery that somebody recommends. But if something doesn't feel right, I would sit with it until it does, or find somebody that's going to listen to what you need to say.
You know, we have on our website, Dr. Dan, I think you've seen that, is the health caring card that allows our viewers to know the questions to ask when they go to the medical doctor, when they're in the medical doctor's office. Wouldn't it be great if you could provide us maybe some of the things we might be able to ask when we're in a chiropractor's office, because that differs. Do we need to have the herbal supplements? I know I once went to a chiropractor and that was pushed at me, and I didn't like that either. And
Right.
I understand the viewers' feelings about that.
Sort of all I can talk to is in the office that we have, there is a priority of things in how you want to handle it. And I lost my train of thought there for a second. So I would just say what I'll do is create maybe on our website, we just brought up a blog.
Okay.
And what I'll commit to doing is over the next couple of weeks, you should find a blog placement for questions you might want to ask your chiropractor.
That's a great idea. Okay.
And the other point I wanted to make quickly is we really only recommend things that we feel are necessary for our care. So when we take x-rays of the neck, it's to measure the misalignment of the spine. Now, some people need full spine x-rays to check for what they're going to do so that they know what to do. If it's because of that, that's one thing. Now, we may have people go see their medical doctor and get coverage through their primary to get those x-rays that don't need to be taken actually in our office. But some people need the x-rays for what they do. Other people are taking them just to, make sure you're not dealing with a medical problem that you don't know what's there. If they're going to be using force in your spine, I think they need to look at it before they do that kind of a thing. So there are a lot of good reasons that chiropractors x-ray. I x-ray regularly, at least the cervical spine and anything else once we get that going. But I don't use forceful adjustments into the spine, so I'm not as worried about what's there. So if your chiropractor needs to take x-rays, I think you need to hear why and then make that decision. But it certainly is an understandable step in the process.
Thank you. I also wanted to put on the overhead for you how you can contact us to get the health caring card that has the questions to ask the doctor. It's in Spanish, English, Polish, and Chinese. And you can call us at 312-440-0630. Email us at savethepatient@aol.com or visit us on our website that you can download it from the site, savethepatient@aol.org. Oh, no, sorry about that. savethepatient.org. You mentioned about this,
The balance.
the balance. That's what we were talking about before the call.
Now, the balance is so important is because one of the main stresses that none of us avoid here, and that certainly includes us as we get a little bit older, is gravity. Gravity never forgets to pull straight down. So if the system is out of plumb or out of alignment, or if you have a friend that always has their head tilted, or the head moves forward in space because of the way the system is aligned, it has to compensate and tighten. And when the body's tightening, it's going to use muscles to do that instead of just sitting in the bones. Muscles need calcium to contract. So all the calcium rushes to the muscles, creating fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, pain syndromes, where just to touch people are painful. If we can get the system balanced and get them back in their body and organized and moving the way we teach with our integration phase of the triad of balance, support, and integrate, then the bones actually become weight-bearing again. Gravity starts to become our friend. Calcium rushes back to the bone. So again, things we see on television all the time is osteoporosis, fibromyalgia. Sometimes when you look at it from a different perspective is, why are the muscles tight? They're just doing what they need to do.
Why do people come? What are the symptoms while we're talking about it? What are the symptoms that drive people to come to your office?
As much as I like to say we're a wellness clinic, we really,
Yes.
pain drives people to see us.
Yes.
And some people only see us when they're in pain. And the distribution of the nerves sends three groups to the head. So headaches, sinus, migraines, TMJ, allergies. Like in my case, who would have thought that allergies was because my body was too busy holding itself together to be able to respond to the environment. Pain down the arms, numbness and tingling, carpal tunnel, tennis elbow, rotator cuff injuries. Now, there are injuries of the rotator cuff. But what if your system's out of balance, it's holding itself together, and it can't afford to reach for the mouse because it's holding you up? Eventually, it's going to tell you to drop the mouse, which then adds mental and emotional stress because now you can't do your job. So pain drives people in. We try to educate them in ways to get their body balanced, get it working right, support those changes with things I do to them, things I do with them, and then more importantly over time what they do with themselves. And as people know how their body's supposed to be working, they will start to get a sense like, I'm not due for 3 weeks, but I think I better get in because I'm noticing that I'm not feeling one of my sit bones. I'm noticing that I'm always leaning off to the side, or I'm getting this funny feeling in my head. So joint pains, knees, hips, shoulders, if the body's out of alignment, something's going to be pressing where it doesn't belong, which creates uneven wear and tear and osteoarthritis.